morning and welcome to ELOsoFumarTakes. This is our 156th take, live from the Lone Star Alec Bradley Studios of Euless, Texas. I'm your host, Barrett Blissey, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a sensational show, fantastic show, on the second greatest holiday of our country, right? No agreements, no disagreements. Well, it's my show. I can say what I want. Anyway, I'm so proud, so pleased. I'm just so excited for everyone to be here tonight. I'm so excited for this show. This guest is someone that I've been wanting to get on the show for a while. And just because I think he's got a sensational story to tell. One may say that it's epic. It's a little on the nose, but we're rolling with it anyway. But before we get to formal introductions, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate announced back in December the launch of Liga Privada Unico Serie Bauhaus, an exclusive release for the European market. The basic tenet of the Bauhaus architectural movement is that every object must have a purpose in design. This specific Liga is done in a short Robusto format that is wrapped in a rich, earthy Connecticut broadleaf capa, includes a bold Brazilian binder, and is completed using filler tobaccos from Honduras and Nicaragua. We're all praying that COVID ends very soon so we can get across the pond to try out the new Liga Privada Serie Bauhaus, made exclusively for the European market. Tonight's show is also sponsored by Oveja Negra Brands, 4 unique companies who share a passion to provide innovative cigars for the next generation of cigar enthusiasts. Black Label Trading Company, Blackwork Studio, Dissonant, and Emilio are combining premium tobaccos with an artisanal touch. Oveja Negra, where art and tobacco collide. Join the flock and visit OvejaNegraCigars.com to learn more. And welcome, everybody. It's Super Bowl Sunday. The big game has been decided, but most importantly, it is 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, and it's time for another take. And we are so excited to welcome in tonight's guest of honor, sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Mr. Dean Parsons, Epic Cigars. Dean, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Bear. Thanks so much for having me. Happy Sunday. As you said, big Super Bowl day, and congratulations to the Tampa Bay Bucks and Tom Brady. I'm sure they're going to be celebrating in Tampa Bay tonight with Gronkowski and everybody else. So it's an awesome afternoon, and but this is a great way to spend cap off the evening and have a cigar and chat. So thanks again for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Dean. Absolutely my pleasure. I'm so excited to I'm so excited to sit down with you. I think this is one of the most excited takes that I've had for a while, just because not only am I intrigued by a lot of your story personally, but I think it's a story that I don't think, I think it needs to continue to get shared because I think it's just one of we're going to do this a lot tonight, epic proportions. And it's just it's something that I've just been fascinated. I think I've read a few articles about you, and I've listened to more than a few interviews that you've done in the past. And I think every time, and this is true of a lot of people, but I think every time that I hear you talk about the story and everything, I pick up something new and different that is just kind of adds to the legend, I guess you could say, which is pretty crazy. So first things first, Dean, I kind of want to get started. I normally have this kind of picked out and everything, but I'm staring at 5 beautiful cigars gifted to me by you, excuse me. And I would like you to pick my cigar tonight. So I have the Epic 10 Maduro, the Epic Corojo, the Epic Habano, and the La Rubia. And so I would love for you to pick my cigar tonight.
I think you got to go with the Epic 10. That's the one I'm heading with. It's obviously the newest cigar that we started shipping just before the holidays, and a fantastic blend collaboration with AJ Fernandez, and being Super Bowl Sunday, why not go to the top of the pile and see what you think. I'm curious to get your feedback on that as well, and hope you enjoy it.
Well, so here's a fun fact. So I haven't smoked this cigar. I have smoked. I'm actually glad you didn't pick the Maduro, because I've had that cigar and I love it. I love the blend. I know we're going to dive into it later, but I was like, there are a couple cigars in here that I have not had, and I was like, instead of saying just leaving out the Maduro, I wanted the choice, and I wanted to give you the choice, and just, oh, it's not like I was going to be disappointed, because I really love that cigar. But so the Epic 10, I'm really excited to light this up, and you said you've got it as well. So this is a complete departure from what your entire history has been in building Epic. You went to a completely different factory, one of the hottest factories in the world, if not the hottest, right? AJ Fernandez. I mean, he's been cranking out some incredible cigars. But why don't you enlighten us on what led to the collaboration and the pretty unique tobaccos in this as well?
Yeah, well, it was obviously, to have the opportunity to work with AJ and anything out of his factory, or to be able to put his name, associate his name with our brand was a bucket list thing for me. And the conversation started with AJ right around the same time that Epic was acquired by Xander Gregg and Nascico brands. So, the end of 2018, early 2019, Arthur, the owner of Xander Gregg, started discussions with AJ, and we kind of pushed forward with several different test blends that he sent out to us. And I didn't actually get to Nicaragua to work on this cigar, but we were very happy with obviously the variations that he sent, and we quickly came to a consensus on obviously the Cameroon is something that I hadn't worked with as far as a wrapper, and and obviously fillers and binders from Nicaragua, but this cigar really stood out, and even I didn't get to smoke it even in a box press format until the boxes arrived, in December of this year. So all the test blends were basically just a Toro version of a cigar. It wasn't the box press like you see now and we're smoking now. So, and it really, it adds to me to the whole experience with the cigar and the elegance of it. So yeah, so it's been exciting. And as I said, we're just getting started. We just started shipping out to retailers before the holidays, and we're still shipping out. It's only 1,000 boxes, all signed certificates inside, all numbered boxes that match the certificates on the outside, and just 1,000 boxes. And we, in the US, we actually only have 790 because we shipped 150 to Germany, to the Klein Lago family, that's our distributor there. And we shipped 50 boxes to Boutique Smokes, Mike Choi in the UK. So the remaining boxes are here in the US, and we've got a few hundred, I think, left in our inventory, but the majority of them have been shipped out. So it's exciting, and the response has been awesome.
So yeah, I was just going to say, I know you're really big in Germany. I know it's I mean, is the U.S. is still like is the, as they always say, is the predominant cigar market in the world, like overall. Is that true of Epic, or I've heard I've heard you share before that I mean, it's just really taken off in Germany.
Yeah, we at one time we probably and this is going back to probably 2015 and 16. We have, I think, more retailers in Germany at one point than we had in South Florida and different places in the U.S. But now, I mean, obviously we've grown a lot since that time, and of course the U.S. is our biggest market and the one we focus on the most. But we've got several hundred retailers in Germany, and a great relationship, obviously, with the Klein Lagos, who represent other brands like Gurkha and Christoph, and they're just great people. They've been in tobacco over 100 years in their family and their distribution side of the business, and just awesome people to work with. And they've really sort of taken Epic on as their own brand, and they really we've got a lot of great support from customers and followers. It's just awesome to experience that. And I've been probably 4 times now to Germany since 2015, and done tours, and just the people, the culture is alive and well and growing. So much history, and just I love getting over there every time and spending 2 or 3 weeks and spending time with people and smoking and touring. so much history.
You know, my wife is German, and one of the most fun trips I've ever taken was a few years ago, just before our oldest was born, to Germany. And you're absolutely right. I mean, just wonderful, rich history, um, wonderful people. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, and everywhere you go, people are offering you a beer. I mean, how could you hate that? Right. It was,
Yeah, it's a lot of drying out when I usually get back from these trips to Germany, because they don't take no as an answer when you go into these shops at 8 or 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the morning, and the beer is flowing, and then that's followed by whiskeys and bourbons and you name it. So it's a lot of work.
So my a lot of my audience knows this, Dean, but you may not know. I'm allergic to chocolate, actually, and um, we were at the famous Christmas market in Nuremberg. When we went on our trip,
Yeah.
and we were at one of the vendors, and she one of the presumably the proprietor offered me something. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm allergic to chocolate, and it was like I killed her son. You know, she was heartbroken. It was I mean, it was almost, she was in pain. It was comical and hilarious. But yeah, they don't take no for an answer.
No.
It's crazy. It's a really, really, really fun time. Really encourage anyone to head out there, and they have they're really heavy on Epic cigars. So really, really awesome there. Um, I lit this up, Dean, and I've got to say, just kind of looking at the wrapper, you got the quintessential Cameroon, what they call freckles all around it. Not a terribly oily cigar, but really pristine looking. Just gorgeous wrapper. I lit this up. The spice is just, really just kind of coats the palate. Not like harsh spice, not like black pepper. There's some of that there, don't get me wrong, but it's just kind of really kind of hits you right off the get. Like this is not a warm up cigar. This doesn't take any warm up time, does it?
No, you're right into it. Yeah, and I appreciate the feedback. I've only actually smoked, it's probably my fourth or fifth one, so I'm still kind of going through the motions of finding the nuances of it, and appreciating it more and more every time I smoke it.
So one of the things I wanted to hit off right off the bat here, Dean, is, I love the story about the name Epic Cigars. I think it has some comedy to it, but like, how on earth did you get this? Did you get the name? Because in a day and age like for anyone who's been spending more than 5 seconds in this business, they know that there's a cigar with every kind of name. And if you want to, have some Spanish in your name, good luck, because they've all been taken. How was a name like Epic still available when you started? This was back in when did you trademark it? 09 or 2010?
Well, it was I think in 9 I got sort of epiccigars.com, and it was in 2010 that I actually submitted the trademark process for the name. And so we actually had the official trademark. It was late 2011 or early 2012. We actually had it in our hand. I had, obviously had cigars in the market at that time, but and it was right around the same time when Monte Cristo came out with the Epic. So the timing was essential. And but then, I mean, it was just, the name was available. I was Googling names, looking for cigar names, because I had a previous cigar in Turks and Caicos. We did it was called a Turk Select.
Turk Select, right?
That I launched in like 2007. And after I left Turks and Caicos, I lived there from 05 to 09. I really wanted to, I was sort of I'd gotten a taste of what it was like to be in the cigar business, and having this sort of cool boutique cigar for Turks and Caicos. And I really wanted to kind of take my knowledge and take the brand opportunity into sort of international next level. And so just started Googling names, and friend of mine has this kiteboarding company, which is a sport I took up in Turks and Caicos and still continue to do today. But a company called Epic Kiteboarding, and I just was sitting on the beach googling names, and I said, "Damn, I wonder if Epic Cigars is available." And it was, and then obviously, when I filed the trademark, hadn't been trademarked, it was available. Yeah, and the rest is history. And we've had a few challenges over the years, but we've come out on top of all those challenges because I took the right steps, not knowing even then what I know now. So I've been certainly blessed because we probably wouldn't be in the market with an Epic cigar had I not taken those steps back when I did. So.
Oh yeah, no way it lasts 10 years. Well, clearly, right? You led me into my next question, right? So Monte Cristo comes out with the Epic, and I know you all came to a coexistence agreement, which
yeah,
I have to say, Dean, that you automatically from that story you have to be the most likable person on earth, because I mean don't get me wrong, this industry is fraught with great relationships. I mean, that's what this industry is all about and everything. But when it comes to names, that's when people get a little bit nasty, and they turn a little bit of a different. They turn a little bit. That's a horse of a different color, as they would say. But and I mean, we've seen. I mean, stuff that's not even close. I'm not naming names, but like two names that are like they're sort of related, but they're not even they're not even close to being the exact same thing. And there's pissing matches over that. I mean, this is the same name. I mean, because most of the time we hear about the quote unquote pissing matches. Like, how did that come about? Did they approach you? Did you approach them about the name to let them know that, hey, we've got some kind of issue here, or like, how did that come about?
Well, the funny thing is a good friend of mine was actually working for Altadis in the Dominican Republic, and he sent me a picture of one of the first Monte Cristo Epics that came off the line before it even hit the shelves, or maybe even left the Dominican. And he said, "Hey, he said, hey, do you know anything about this?" And I see this picture, and I'm like, "You got to be joking." And so I immediately went into panic mode and called actually a good friend of mine, and John Starks, who used to play with the Knicks. John makes cigars out of our factory in the Dominican as well, and I met John in my Turks and Caicos days. He actually came down for the launch of my Turks and Caicos cigar, so we became friends. Did a lot of golfing together in the Dominican and spending time, and so through another friend of John's who we had met in the Dominican, he works for a fairly prestigious law firm out of New York, and they agreed to send a courtesy letter on my behalf over, and then that kind of got the ball rolling, and they took me seriously, and yeah, it took probably 6-8 weeks, and we came to an agreement, and yeah, at the time it was the right decision, and just was fortunate that I got some great advice from some people that didn't cost me too much. But once again, cigars, that happens in the cigar world. You get people that you build those relationships over time, and people are more than willing to help a lot of times if they think your heart's in the right place or your intentions are good.
I mean, just when I first heard that, I was like, this is kind of goes into the whole story, because I mean, you have, and we're going to get into the journey. I'm going to try not to use the word epic as much, but I mean, it really is a saga, to choose another cigar name, right? Your story really is kind of one of ups and downs and twists and turns, and just a long road that it's taken to get to where you are today. And I mean, here we are smoking the 10, celebrating 10 plus years in the business. I mean, that's it's fantastic. um you know when you Googled the name on, because you did this on the beach, right? This is the story, right? You did this on a beach. When you Googled the name and you saw that it was available, and I know you bought the name, like you bought the web right there, the domain right then. Was there kind of an because at that point, I mean, this was still 10 years ago, and there were still some peaks and valleys to happen, but I mean, you had a great story up until that point. Was there kind of an underlying feeling of, this is fitting?
It was, and more than that, Bear. I think it was. I knew I really had something because I think in the cigar industry you have to kind of make or navigate your way, but you want something special. You want a name, something that's catchy, something that's easy, something that's simple to say. But at Epic, I mean, it's the hardest part of Epic is living up to the expectations of the name. When you talk about epic history, epic poems, and so we're sort of writing that story as we go. And to be honest, I think we're really just getting started. And you look at some of the leaders in the industry that have been around for 20, 30, 100 years, and nothing happens overnight. So 10 years in this business, there have been a lot of ups and downs, but it seems like it's been super quick.
Now, before we get into tonight's major point, quick question. So I know you're pretty regionally popular, although you all are all over the United States. Jay was talking about how Jay Davis of Blue Smoke was telling us how you're going to be hosting an event here at the end of the month here at his store. But we have some requests for New England. I know you're big in Jersey and Pennsylvania, but any place in New England, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, any of the surrounding states up there where people can get your cigars?
Not right now. Not right now. I have several shops coming online in the spring, New Hampshire and New England areas. But yeah, right now we've been a little bit scarce up in that area, and obviously with COVID, haven't been able to get up there. I had trips planned last spring, but obviously that didn't happen. So we're hoping to make that happen this spring, and we've grown a lot. The Baltimore, Washington area, and we're sort of just working our way north, but we're going to get there.
Well, terrific. And that leads us into tonight's major point, which of course is always brought to you by Baracoa Cigar Company. Baracoa is back. It's getting ready for the relaunch of the Voyage this month. I actually personally can't wait for the cigar to come back. It's been over 3 years. But now with a revamped blend coming out of one of the hottest factories in the industry, Danny Vasquez promises if you like the original blend, you're going to love the relaunch. So stay tuned for more details on how you can enjoy the Voyage. Never settle, Baracoa Cigar Company. And I know Danny's extra happy tonight because he actually before this year, and I can attest to this personally, he actually is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. So awesome. He is not watching the show tonight. I can guarantee it. He's out celebrating. So as he should be. I mean, what an incredible performance by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, we can talk about the greatness of Tom Brady, but the only prediction that came true for me, because I actually picked the Chiefs, but the only prediction that came true for me was I said the Buccaneers defense is awesome, and they're actually going to hold Mahomes and company to under 30 points. Man, was I right about that. And that's about it.
It's awesome. And they really did. They came through and shined. And it's funny, you look at the last, 4, 5, 6 games. And I said to a buddy of mine this afternoon, I was watching the game with, I said, you know what? I said, he's going to be going to Gronk more today. And, saw those 2 touchdowns, and that guy is just awesome as well. And what a cap to an awesome career so far for those guys. And I don't think they're done yet.
He just seems to keep going. I think he's going to make good on his promise. I think he said to 45 years ago. He said he was going to play to 45 years. I don't think he's going to stop, and unless he announced something while we've been on air and I missed it. But I just I think he's a man of his word, and I think he's going to go to age 45 and just do it. I mean, I think you're just going to have to pry him off the field with from his cold dead fingers, I suppose. But but you're not you're certainly not unfamiliar with a competitive spirit, because you grew up. No, you didn't play football. In fact, I mean, I know the CFL is incredibly popular up in Canada because that's where you grew up. But obviously the national pastime for your home country is hockey, and you, like many other young men and women, played the sport, but you played it at an incredibly high level. I mean, talk a little bit about, from, what you know about American youth sports and how Canadian hockey takes it to a different level and where and to the level that you actually got to.
Well, it's crazy, growing up, I guess when I was, played hockey from the time I could walk, I guess. So I was skating when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and came up through, all of the levels of minor hockey in Canada. And then when I was 16, I got scouted by, at that time, the Laval Titans, which they were the Quebec major junior team, farm team for the Quebec Nordiques. And so I spent some time in Laval. There were guys there. Gino Ojek was there. Desjardins played Montreal later. The Laval Titans, that's where Mario Lemieux set all the Quebec major junior records before he went to Pittsburgh. So long-standing history of people going right into the NHL. I didn't get that far, but was at that high level and had some opportunities, which was just awesome. At 16, 17 years old to leave home and have the opportunity to go away and play semi-professional hockey was awesome. And that my time in hockey and connections that I made through playing hockey led into later in university and then into my policing career. A lot of those sort of hockey relationships added to opportunities, which, I ended up policing for 10 years on the East Coast of Canada as well. So a lot of the guys I worked with were ex-hockey players, some of them professionally that went into law enforcement as well. So yeah, it's just an awesome sort of upbringing and obviously, working and living in Canada and growing up in that sort of team concept is something that translates into lots of great things in different parts of your life. But the NHL is very similar, obviously, to the NFL, and Canada's sort of been a leader in professional hockey and over the years. So it's just great. Yeah, it's been. I don't watch much hockey. Haven't skated in years, but I miss the camaraderie. I miss being on the ice. And I was right up until I moved to Turks and Caicos in 2005. I was still playing hockey 2 or 3 times a week in the evenings and pickup games at lunchtime when I was policing and stuff. So something I miss for sure.
Pickup hockey games, that's such a foreign concept to me. I grew up in Texas, as everyone knows, and hockey's actually become really big down here. Youth hockey's actually become really a big thing, and I mean, I'm sure if you came down, I'm sure you could still, even though you said you haven't been on skates in years, I'm sure you could still skate circles around some of these guys. But it has become something that's been a lot bigger, and I'm excited to see that, because I'm excited to see sports that for a long time were so regionally regionally accessible and regionally popular become more popular in different regions. Like lacrosse is becoming good down here, big down here. I really enjoy rugby. I love curling. Now, did you ever curl growing up?
I mean, it was more of I curled probably dozens of times to just as more of a fun thing, not competitively. But yeah, it's a big sport in Canada, and actually Canada's national sport, is not hockey. It's actually lacrosse, which a lot of people don't know. The actual official, Canadian sport was lacrosse.
I'll be damned.
Before hockey, yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Never played.
Never played lacrosse. Okay, so
No.
I mean, curling is. I always say curling is the northern man's golf, because, I mean, it's a sport where you can drink beer and smoke cigars. I mean, it's perfect. I mean, it's perfect for our crowd. I don't understand why it's not more popular. People just think I'm crazy when I'm like, yeah, curling's awesome.
It is a blast, a super blast. I've curled many times and done, fun tournaments over the weekends and things with friends. And yeah, it's a sport that's a lot of fun if you really dive into it a little bit.
So you mentioned the Labatt Titans that you played for, which is from my understanding, it's a very prestigious team. So is the next step? I know you went a different route. Obviously, you didn't quite make the cut to go professional. You went and played at university. But I mean, that next step, it's that the next step is the NHL.
Yeah.
I mean, that's triple A, I guess, if I'm a baseball guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
100%.
incredible. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The term in baseball is a cup of coffee, like where you go and, a pro team scouts you, may even play a game or two in the bigs or something like that, or you're kind of on the verge. I mean, were any were any NHL teams looking at you? Did you have any conversations with them about potentially
No,
playing or?
no, not at that time. When I was in Laval, and this was in '88, Paul Bordelot was the coach at that time, and he eventually went on and coached in Montreal for several years. And that was pretty cool. But no, didn't get to those levels of having the NHL talks, but certainly got to experience the highest, the one of the higher levels as far as professional sports, and kind of go through that. And when I think back now, I mean, I was probably a little bit unprepared when I got to camp. I was a little afraid. I didn't speak French, and basically everybody in the locker room did. The coaches did, and there were a couple other guys from the east coast of Canada that were scouted as well at the same time, and so we stuck close together and sort of navigated our way through the training camps and a lot of the matches and things. But yeah, it was a time I'll never forget, and an awesome experience that too many people don't get the opportunity to be part of something like that.
So, from my understanding, you were a defenseman growing up, like pretty much all throughout your life, and then you were converted to play wing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's a huge shift in style. I mean, do you think did that help you diversify your play to make you a better all around player, or do you think that maybe harbored any chances of you making it to the next level?
Probably hurt me more than it helped. And even at that time, I was probably 180 pounds, and I'm just under 6 foot. There were guys a lot bigger than me. There were guys 6'1", 6'2", 6'5", that they had on the point or playing defense. So I didn't really have an option to choose when you get to that level. I mean, years later, now I sit at about 235, 240 is my sort of average weight. I try to keep it down around 230 sometimes, but I sort of grew many years later. I put a lot more weight on in size, and obviously trained a lot more. And yeah, but I was a skinny 18-year-old kid at that time. So
yeah, we're gonna get into some of your other pastimes, which require you to be the bulked up version that you are now compared to that kid playing some minor league hockey. But awesome. So that led to your time at university, and then you, I guess, from my understanding, kind of interned is probably the inappropriate term, but interned with the police department while you were there, which led to your career in policing. What kind of drove you to that? Was it was it a desire to serve? Was it something else attractive about the career in policing that got you? Like, where did that come from?
it was. Really, throughout my summers when I was in university, I would get hired by the park patrol with the Fredericton Police on the east coast of Canada. And Fredericton's a town about 50,000 people. They had a 100-member police force, and so several students would get hired every summer, and I was someone that got hired, sort of back-to-back summers, and got to do a lot of on-the-job training, ride-along, shadowing a lot of these police officers, and they also made me an honorary member of the police hockey team, and then I eventually moved on to the auxiliary program with the Fredericton Police, and became a full-time auxiliary member, which you go through a lot of the training that you go through in the academy, not quite at that high level. You're not allowed to carry a firearm, but you have to do all the training with your firearms. So, and then that sort of just led into going to the police academy and getting trained. And then, I had the job there waiting for me when I was done. And it kind of, when I think back now, it's almost 10 years, but it feels like just sort of like a moment in time when, I left in 2005. And that's 15, 16 years ago now. So it's, and it wasn't sort of necessarily, it's just something I sort of fell into is probably the best way to describe it.
Okay.
And through friendships and relationships and through people sort of believing in me and saying, hey, this is something, we think you'd be good at. We'd like to send you to the academy to get trained and the future is yours. And then through my 10 years, I, worked uniform patrol for the first couple of years, but then I quickly went into crimes, major crime investigations. I worked in drug section. I was on the SWAT team. We had a 10-member SWAT team. I rode the Harley. I did traffic patrol. So I kind of got to diversify in my 10 years over several different, areas and sections within the police force. But it's funny, man. And in that 8 or 9 year period, or right around that time, I knew I wasn't going to be a cop for 20 years. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just kind of knew that maybe there was something else out there for me in the back of my mind. And it wasn't until I went on a vacation to see a buddy of mine in Turks and Caicos in 2003. Then I went back there in 2004, and then some opportunities started to present themselves, and then moved there permanently in 2005 with the real estate group, and the rest is history. And then 2009, after the market crash, we had already opened up our first hotel, and I've been in real estate there.
Well, hold that thought, Dean. I want to go back to something real quick. SWAT. Sorry, that grabbed my attention. So SWAT team. So you said there was a 10-person SWAT team.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about intensive training. I mean, that did you have to put in a lot of years on the force? I mean, you served for 10 years. Did you have to put put a few years in, or was that something that you kind of got into right away? I mean,
it was the last 4 years, and I actually had applied twice and didn't make the team, didn't make the cut. And then my third time through the training, the aptitude testing, everything, I finally made the team. And with the force was only 100 members, and so even to try to get on that team was there were a lot of longstanding guys that were on there for 10, 15, some guys 20 years. So there weren't a lot of spots opening up when I was sort of going through my career. And but yeah, this was a pretty exciting time, and I got to see a lot of things that your average officer doesn't get to experience. And then the high levels of training is amazing. And to be 24/7 on call, and to see some crazy stuff over my time. A lot of kicking doors, a lot of scary situations, and it was pretty cool.
I can't believe I'm asking this. But I got you. What was the craziest story when you were on the SWAT team? Like, what was if you can even talk about it, what was like I can't believe I'm in the thick of this right now.
There's a couple I can't really talk about.
That's fair. I figured as much, but
just yeah, some this is probably stuff that people not, maybe it's a conversation for a face-to-face conversation.
Yeah, fair enough.
Rather than live. Yeah, but saw some things
that tells the story right there, Dean.
Yeah.
That tells the story right there. So something else grabbed my attention there. You said that you well, actually, before I asked that, you mentioned something before the show that I thought was really, really fascinating, which was you were the very first Black member of the New Brunswick police force.
Yeah, the Fredericton City Police. Yeah, so, which is pretty interesting. Interesting times that time period in my life, and with all the things that have gone on in the last 10 or 15 years. When we talk about we spoke about this, whether racial injustice and different things. So it was an interesting time when I was hired, and went through some ups and downs, some criticisms, some racial tensions, it's, when you put that uniform on, you have, you put on a burden as well, and then you have to, lift yourself sort of to a higher standard, and regardless of, color, race, ethnicity, but certainly saw some good things and some bad things over the years, and you just try to find a way to always do the right thing and navigate through those situations and build relationships that aren't, based necessarily on the color of your skin, but more of your ability to do your job and your knowledge and your forethought and right thinking and good decision making. So, but yeah, I went through some challenges over the years.
So I was going to ask this later on, and we did talk about it before the show, but I think it's appropriate since we're kind of on the topic of it. And I preface this to you, and I'm going to preface to my audience. So I have absolutely no agenda in asking this question, but I think that Dean brings an interesting perspective, and I'm anxious to hear it. And you kind of already shared a little bit about it. You've served in the police force, and I can't believe I didn't thank you for your service before this, because I find policemen and women of this country, of Canada, all over the world, it's an incredibly, incredibly difficult job. One of the hardest jobs in the world. And you also happen to be Canadian. You served in the police force in Canada, New Brunswick, and you also are Black. And I think you have a very unique perspective, especially what's gone on the last 12 months here in this country. I mean, it's been going on for years, but is there anything that you any kind of words of wisdom or anything that you experienced in your career that could lend value to the current situations that are going on?
You just probably the biggest thought that comes to mind for me is just taking responsibility, for your actions, certainly in the policing profession, but also just doing the right thing. As I said, you're held to a higher standard when you graduate from the academy, and they give you that badge, and then you have the luxury of carrying a gun 24/7 and taking away people's freedoms and rights when it's warranted. And it's a heavy, sort of a heavy task. And so I stay connected to a lot of the obviously police forces around the world, and we're big supporters of the Smoke and Shields group, that started out in New York, and now they've got chapters all over the U.S. And we did some cigars for the Maryland group, and John Bellico, the president up in New York. So it's something I believe in, and something that's sort of near and dear to me. But you just, as I said, you put that badge on, you have a responsibility to be at a higher standard, and a moral obligation to always do the right thing. And that doesn't always happen, unfortunately. And like in every profession, there's sometimes good and bad apples, or situations that you can become compromised. So it's certainly a tough job, but if I had my time back, I probably wouldn't go back and serve today, knowing what I know now. So I just have a lot of respect for the men and women that really are out there, especially in today's day and age, wearing the badge and putting their lives on the line every day, because it's a heavy task, and thankless at a lot of the time.
It certainly is, and again, I thank you for your service and the men and women that you served with, and who continue to serve to this day. I know that you still have friends who are still members of police forces all around this country and your home country as well.
Yeah.
You brought up and I heard you speak about this in another show, and then we kind of touched on it a little bit before the show too. Some of the toughest calls that you ever were on had nothing to do with situations that are becoming more talked about today, at least in the past 12 months, but rather domestic calls, domestic dispute calls were some of the scariest. I'll use that word. I don't think you use that word, but I'll use that
Yeah.
word.
Yeah, no, the domestic violence is sort of one of the top contributors to police officers being injured and or killed, and it's scary. And as a I guess as a regular civilian, you wouldn't necessarily think that that would be a high risk sort of situation, but it is one of the highest risk situations, and the officer mortality rate is very high when it comes to responding to domestic violence cases. Whether it be husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend scenarios, and it's you never know how those things can turn very quickly and turn into loss of life.
That's just unbelievable. You're right. Me being just a normal citizen, I heard you say that before, and I was shocked to find that that's the case. And then when I heard you say that in a previous interview, having you that we're going to be on the show, I started asking some of my friends who are police officers as well, and I was like, hey, I've heard this perspective, and they're like, oh, absolutely. I mean, it's spot on. And I was like, unbelievable. How do we not know about this? Like, how is there not more awareness about this? And I think it's something that through discussions like these we can kind of bring that to light. And I think it's a very important topic for sure. We're not going to be Debbie Downers all night. So your life took a pretty abrupt turn when you decided to take a vacation in a place that I've always wanted to visit. I'm not a big beach guy. I give me a mountaintop and some skiing and a fire and a cigar and a nice spirit, and that's vacation. That's relaxing to me. But my wife's a big beach person, and she said, well, where would you want to go? And I was like, well, I've been to Dominican, and I think that's sensational, but I've always wanted to go to Turks and Caicos. But that's a place that you called home for several years. You mentioned that you went down there on vacation, went back another year, and then got the opportunity to make the move. So, I know it was revolving around real estate. Did you have any real estate ambitions before this, or was it just something that kind of fell in your lap?
It was just one of those scenarios. A good friend of mine, roommates in college and after college, was there working in real estate from, I think, 2003. And I got down there a couple times to visit. And of course, it's impossible not to fall in love with that place. It's, they've been top 10 beaches in the world probably the last 20 years. And the scuba diving, the water sports, the turquoise water, it's just over the top. The view when you fly into Providenciales and Turks and Caicos is just, it takes your breath away. And so to get there and have that opportunity, and I had never really traveled much outside of Canada before that time. And and the main island, Providenciales, is only about 26 miles long and about 2.5 miles wide at its widest point. So you can easily end up with cabin fever there as well. But yeah, the opportunity just kind of sort of fell into my lap, and I sort of took a look internally and said, listen, I think this is sort of that move that I was debating making, or that opportunity that was just sort of pie in the sky scenario. But yeah, so I flew back after my second trip and went in and handed in my resignation, and really didn't look back. And so lived there from 2005 to 2009. But once again, saw a lot of ups and downs. When I got there, the real estate market was booming. We opened our first hotel in 2008, and then we started selling our second property, which was going to be a bigger hotel resort. And we did an event in Miami one night, and we sold 44 condos out of 150 condo unit building in one night. Took money, escrows, and deposit, and made close to $1 million in commissions. And the market crashed. The money sat in escrow. All the money got returned, and next thing you know, I'm on a plane to the Dominican Republic with another real estate project. So yeah, wow. It was, yeah, it's yeah. So you never know what's going to happen. And I was thankful that at that time I had made some good relationships in Turks and Caicos with other people in the real estate industry, and a group that was starting a new project, actually a group out of Fort Lauderdale that had land in the Dominican, hired me to head up their sales team. And so I moved in January 2009, moved to the Dominican and the North Coast in Cabarete, Puerto Plata area. And, you know, the rest is history. And that's when I started, you know, still working full time in real estate. But yeah, we wanted to sort of build something with Epic. And that gave me the opportunity to do that. So, yeah. And then 9 years later, that's, you know, from 2009 to basically the end of 2018, I was living in the Dominican full time and traveling from there, you know, wherever I had to go. And that gave me the opportunity to really, you know, spend time with a lot of people that I look up to in this business, and learn and get mentored, and, you know, spend the time in the factory and just learning the business while, you know, the first few years still having, you know, a backup plan, or having that, you know, the resources to stay employed and to focus on, you know, investing in what I was trying to build.
So, but this, I mean, the story of Epic really starts, I mean, really, well, it started a long time ago, but I mean, it actually really started with your work in Turks and Caicos. You started, you know, from what I understand, the cigar market or cigar world in Turks and Caicos isn't very broad, which is interesting to me, considering it's sitting in the Caribbean, which is the, you know, hotbed for cigar activity. But so here's a question that I've always wanted to ask you. Now, I know that your first cigar was in Canada, and I'm presuming it was, and from my understanding, it was Cuban. It was a Cuban cigar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you had, being Canadian, you had access to Cubans. Going to Turks and Caicos, you had access to Cubans. But yet you opted to go and do tours in the Dominican, you know, Davidoff, you know, so La Aurora, and a couple of other places. I know that you're really close with the Sejas family,
Yeah.
which is the first. I've coined the term. They're the first family of Dominican cigars, because
I agree.
they actually have no Cuban heritage. They're entirely Dominican, which is really great story that they have. What drove you to the Dominican rather than going the Cuban route?
Well, it was only a 20-minute flight. So from Providencia, Turks and Caicos, over to Santiago was a quick flight. And so it made sense. It was easy, quick. And it's funny, all these years later, I still haven't been to Cuba, and I can go anytime with, you know, with my Canadian passport, but I have not been to Cuba. Yeah, it was just more out of convenience, somewhere close that I could fly to, and for not a lot of money. And, you know, we had a lot of cigars, and initially I was just going and buying cigars to have for our clients and customers, you know, at our sales center and at our resort. And it sort of morphed into something else. And after, you know, buying cigars over a couple of years and seeing the opportunity of, wow, I could actually make and brand a cigar for the Turks and Caicos, and the inspiration that came from was I did a trip to the Bahamas, and I had an opportunity to go to the Grey Cliff Hotel and have that sort of Grey Cliff experience, where they have the roller in the lobby of this sort of boutique restaurant, and they have the wine cellar in the basement, and the guy rolls a cigar for you after dinner, you know, medium, light, medium, full bodied, and they, you know, the guy comes out in the white dinner jacket, and he's sort of roasting the cigar with the open flame to dry it, because it's just freshly rolled off the table. And I'm like, hey, if they can have cigars in Bahamas, and they're, you know, initially they were all rolled there, and I think they use some factories now in the Dominican, I'm not sure, but I'm like, I can make a cigar in the Dominican for the Turks and Caicos Islands. And that's sort of what I ended up doing. And we had in all the, you know, hotels and resorts and duty free shops, and a sort of a backstory on the cigar, which made it something that, as people traveled, it was an item they would take back with them, a sort of a piece of history of the Turks and Caicos Islands.
So the Turk Select was your first blend, actually. It was in 2007. So what, being Dominican, was it a Dominican Puro, or did you, what
Yeah,
Okay, so it's a Dominican Puro.
yeah, yeah. It has Sumatra Indonesian binder and Dominican binders and fillers. Yeah, light, light to medium at best as far as strength, and just something that you, even as a first-time smoker, you can have a good experience with. And towards the end, I came out with a Maduro version, but it never really took off. And then, obviously the changes, the market crashing, and then relocating to the Dominican, I kind of moved away from that, and we shut that side of the business down. And that's when I started to, had the vision for Epic and launching, something different that wasn't anchored to the Turks and Caicos.
Was the Turk Select blend, was that kind of your wheelhouse, or were you blending for the popular market? Something that was more approachable.
Market. Yeah, popular market, 100%. And I was still, I was still pretty green at that time as far as, cigars and the knowledge that I had, and certainly if I was to back up now, I probably wouldn't have anything close to that cigar. But my knowledge has grown, my palate's changed, but it's still a cigar I think that could fit into a profile of cigars as you build a business. It's certainly it was well received, and at the time I thought it was pretty awesome, and it was a lot of fun just learning and sort of growing and branding. And we did a whole history of the cigar was called the Turk Select 1841, and in 1841 there was a slave ship called the Troubadour that sailed from Africa, was on its way to Cuba, and sank off the Turks and Caicos. And so we did a whole sort of history spin on the Taste of Freedom, Turk Select 1841, and I was going to come up with several other lines of cigars sort of based on that as well, but switched gears and we headed in an epic direction.
I mean, it certainly has been an epic story so far. I mean, semi-professional hockey, career in law enforcement, $1 million deals in the real estate market, a crash, and now you're in the Dominican, and you decide to launch Epic Cigars. So what was the initial intent? Like I know for a while you were still working both, like you said, you were working both. It wasn't your full time yet. What was the initial challenge of getting it off the ground? Was it finding the right factory? Was it the blending? Was it the market? I mean, was it an all encompassing thing? I mean, what was the biggest challenge you faced by launching a new brand, in 2010?
It was it was a combination of a lot of things, certainly from a financial standpoint, because it's one of those, I always say, be careful what you wish for. And when I started Epic originally with the Maduro and the Corojo lines, and 3 sizes at the time, Robusco, Double Corona, Gordo, and 2 different boxes, and then we start to hit the market, you start to get some traction, and then you're making 5,000, 10,000, and then all of a sudden you're making 50,000 cigars, and it can kind of, you can drown in that if you don't. Because I was just sort of winging it the first 3 or 4 years, and thankfully I had the support of the factory, and they were financing, and as long as I was selling it, they were producing more and keeping back stock. So it was the biggest challenge is financially, just taking that leap, because we're always making money, but you're not, when you start out in this business, you're not making enough money to pay yourself a salary and do all that other stuff. And so, but it wasn't until I switched gears and went full time that you can't get to the next level doing this as a part-time job, and that's what I was doing for the first few years. And then obviously was able to raise capital, had some investors early that helped grow, but once again, you invest a few $100,000 or $500,000, and then okay, well, you realize you really needed $1 million, or 750,000, and so it's yeah, it can be overwhelming.
Well,
Sure.
what's the longest standing joke in the industry? If you want to make $1 million in this business, start with 2.
Yeah, that's Eric Espinosa. The first time I met him, he said that, and he's so right. So it can be overwhelming, and the biggest thing is when you start to build a retail base, and then they're building a customer base based on your cigars and what you're offering, and then when that goes away, and I went through those challenges where, in New Jersey and Philly area, we had dozens and dozens of shops, and then I was struggling even up until 2018, not having all the resources I needed, and you're running out of product. It's getting delayed. You're getting shipments in late. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul scenario, and so sometimes it's easier to get a new customer than it is to build the relationship back up again after you've let somebody down, as far as just not being able to supply the demand that they've created with your cigars. So, you know, there's a lot of challenges. It's not for the sleight of heart, for sure. And there were times, I can tell you between probably 2015 to 2018 that I didn't know if we were gonna, keep the wheels on the bus or not. And a lot of challenges, and even now with the acquisition of Epic by Sandra Gregg Natsico, since the change, we've probably grown more in the last 2 years than I grew in the first sort of 8. And we're in a position now where we're growing, rebuilding some relationships, and obviously expanding our whole footprint. And it's a good feeling when you're you don't have to look over your shoulder trying to make ends meet, and you can really, what I love to do is building on the relationships, traveling, new cigars, new products, new packaging, and so it's nice to have all the resources in place that we have now, and be able to take some big steps in the industry. It's a good feeling, for sure.
I want to come back to some of the growing pains and then also the victories too along the way. But since you've mentioned it a couple of times now, I want to skip ahead a little bit here. I have a day job too, and last year, my company, who was a small boutique software company, entered into a partnership where you would say an acquisition, depending on the perspective of the company. So I'm working for a much larger company now. The acquisition by Natsico, was that how did that relationship come about, and was it, and ultimately you're obviously still heading the brand, you are still the identity of the brand, which is terrific for all of your your lifelong fans, but how did that relationship develop, and then how did it ultimately come down to, I'm going to stay on and I'm going to continue to build this thing?
Yeah, well, Arthur Barbarian, who's the owner of Sandra Gregg Distributing, which is basically, Sandra Gregg is like a smaller version of Phillips and Kingermeyer Dutch, carry more than 7,500 items, premium cigars, you name it, accessories. But we had met in 2003 or 4 in the Dominican through some common friends. He had done some business with Rolando, who runs our factory there, and we had met at some Christmas events over the years, and obviously we met at the trade show in Vegas several times, and he took an interest in me and what I was doing with Epic, but we also had some conversations where I was sharing some of the challenges that I was going through, and so we just kept in touch over all those years, and finally at the end of 2018 or early 2019, it just made sense to make that move, and really nothing has changed as far as the business, except we've got more cigars in production, we've got more cigars aging, we're marketing now like we never did, and basically I'm out traveling, and we've got budgets in place to do all the things, and that's led to new business opportunities, new business relationships, new charity work we're doing, and just more events and giving more back to our retailers, giving more back to their customers, and growing and to, everybody wants to. It's never hard to find people that want to, invest in a cigar business or be part of something cool. But what Xander Gregg and that Seco Brands brings to Epic is, distribution, the understanding of the cigar business, the understanding of where you need to put funds and why you need to put them there, and which can be difficult to explain to somebody that's not really part of the business. And Arthur's been around the business for a long, long time. Has a lot of relationships with, some of the top players in the industry, and and obviously including AJ. And so it was a natural fit as opposed to, just finding investment dollars.
Now, I know Xander Gregg really helped kind of spearhead this growth, this exceptional growth that you've had in Germany that we alluded to earlier. But you actually built Epic as an international business when you built a relationship with the Bondi family up in your native Canada, right? So that was, and they're known for their distribution of Alec Bradley. They've taken on several brands since then, but yours was the next brand that they took. I mean, they were exclusively Alec Bradley until you entered the Canadian market, right?
Yeah, and it was 2015. Actually, was the same time when we started in Germany. Both those relationships came into play that same year, and Joe and Justin have been awesome. Canada, obviously the pricing's challenging, the import taxes, and you're paying $16 to $20 for an Epic cigar there, as opposed to 8 to 10 in the US or 12. But being from Canada, that was something I really wanted to eventually have my cigars back there, and I didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did. And we've got some awesome retailers, in Canada, across the country, and still growing those relationships as well. And they're just awesome. They're both hockey guys, so that was really what sort of sparked the relationship, where cigars over hockey's about conversations about hockey and sports, and they're just their family. When I go to Canada, I stay with them, at their homes, and it's just a real sort of relationship that you don't get with a lot of people you do business with. So they're like family. I consider them family for sure. And even at that time, Alan Rubin, who being from Alec Bradley, or being the exclusive distributor for Alec Bradley, he kind of had to sort of give them his blessing to bring in other brands. And obviously now they're also working with Espinosa, obviously with Christoph Cigars, and a few other brands. So yeah, it's been a great ride with those guys, and I love getting up there. It's been a minute, so hopefully we'll be able to get up there soon.
Now, I know you hail from the eastern part of the country. My in-laws are actually they call Vancouver, British Columbia, home. They're actually working on citizenship as well. But they introduced me to some great establishments there in BC. One on Victoria Island, and then but one of the places I loved. I don't know have you been to City Cigar in Vancouver? Have you?
I have not. No.
Oh, it's a fantastic store. I think the thing it's really interesting about the cigar culture in Canada versus the United States, it's here in the United States, and probably the world over, it's for the most part, it's very lounge driven. It's there's a haven to smoke, right? Well, in Canada, that's a no-go because of smoking restrictions and everything. Which I've always struggled with, because I've been in cigar shops, even in this country, where they're not smoking, and there's no lounge, and it's been a struggle for me, because I've worked retail as well, and it's been a struggle for me to kind of take them seriously when they're not actively smoking the product in front of me. That couldn't be further from the truth at the folks of City Cigar, and I'm sure that it's like that all over Canada. Because I mean, these people were just as passionate as me, just as passionate as some of the great proprietors and tobacconists down here in the States. And it was a really eye-opening experience because they really talked. They didn't just talk about Cubans. They talked about all the other available cigars and stuff. And it was a wonderful experience. I really encourage, if you ever do get north of the border, you're going to pay a hefty price, but Epics are steal it twice the price, because they're basically they're an affordable cigar there in Canada. So that's when you're paying $30 for other stuff.
It's crazy. I remember I did an event in Calgary a few years ago, Calgary, Canada, and guys are buying boxes, or doing box sales, which is rare as well. And so these guys are splitting boxes for $600 Canadian. That's $200 box of cigars in the US, and I'm like, I'm just struggling. I'm feeling bad for these guys. I'm like, but once again, when you look at the Cubans, it's it's a whole nother level again. You can be paying as much as $30, $40, $50 Canadian for just a regular Cohiba, nothing special. So yeah, it's challenging.
I recall my first visit to City Cigar, and my father-in-law, who doesn't have a lot of money, and I thought it was an incredible gift. He knew how much I love cigars, and he's like, "All right, Barry, your gift is it's $100 to go spend." And I was floored by the amount, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is crazy." And I got into the store, and I realized how $100 didn't go very far. But it was still, that being said, it was still an incredible experience, and it was very, very generous by my father-in-law. It was crazy. And today's his birthday, so happy birthday to my father-in-law, yeah. Ingo Schepler. He tremendous man, and so I'm really awesome. Really pleased to talk about him on his birthday today. So, Epic is done incredibly well in Canada, incredibly well in Germany. Now you're now with the partnership with Nat Seco, you're really bolstering to make a footprint here in the United States, which is still the market in the world when it comes to cigars. The 10, which I'm still finishing. Dean, this is sensational. The cigar is sensational. I'm really blown away with the flavor. There's a lot of power to this cigar, but it's not overpowering, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's got some good age on it as well, because of, believe it or not, one of the better things that happened with COVID is we shipped that cigar, basically sat for almost a year.
Oh wow!
Before we started shipping, so yeah, which just certainly adds to the experience. And yeah, it's such a departure from all the other things we have in Epic, which we've got a pretty broad spectrum, but this is completely different. And obviously, coming from Nicaragua, there's just so many great tobaccos from different regions there, and it's just another experience. And we're going to be bringing more things from Nicaragua in the future as well.
Well, that's terrific to hear. So, over the years, you've built this, just to kind of go back a little bit in the history, you built up this relationship with the Charles Fairborn factory, which is, home to Christoph Cigars. And between Christoph and Epic, you guys make up 99% of their production. And, if not more. So I know you have a really big familiarity with Glen Cigars, and when you decided to partner with that particular factory, was it, because it's kind of dominated by one terrific brand. Was that a challenge in itself, or was it just about being with the right people?
It was, obviously about being with the right people, but having, on some of my initial visits with Rolando Villamil, who's master blender, and who's the guy behind all the great things that Christoph has put out into the market as well. It was just a feeling, a good feeling of, this is the place I want to be. And then obviously meeting Glenn years later, and spent time with Glenn and Jared and Ward and all the guys from Christoph, and they're just such a great team. And Glenn's wife Terry, and they're just good people, and they're certainly a great brand to model success after, and continue to do great things. They've got an awesome retail base in the U.S., and they're a bigger brand than most people realize, and they're doing great things. So that in turn gives us access to more tobaccos, more opportunities as far as the tobaccos we work with, and the scalability of our brands. And it's just an awesome team, and really I've had the opportunity to meet and work on blends with other factories in the Dominican that over the years as well that we've considered, but just we're there, the Charles Fairmont, which is now it's called Von Eycken Tobacco. So the factory is actually owned by a German, they're a cigarette conglomerate called Tabacalera Von Eycken, and they focus on cigarette business in Germany, but they oversee and they have the ownership of the factory in the Dominican as well. So we've got a great team and a lot of resources there that I wouldn't have with other factories, and the growth capability as well to scale our brands and to scale our production and back end. So we're gonna be with them for a long time.
It's great to hear. I have an extensive experience with Christoph cigars, as it's well documented. My 2019 number one cigar of the year was the Christoph Vengeance for 2019. So I'm a huge fan.
Awesome stick.
I absolutely love it. And so my experience with them is a lot more extensive than I would say with Epic. But what I would say that I've, in my limited experience with Epic, and even my extensive experience with Christoph, is that both the cigars are kind of and while they're completely different, which is incredible when you think about cigars coming out of the same factory, because there's, in this business is fraught with, when you have a cigar factory, they kind of put their signature, across brands. Yeah. But that couldn't be further from the truth from you guys. But what I will say that they've mastered in y'all's two brands is excellence and nuance. Because neither in my experience with Epic and nor with my experience in Christoph are any of the blends just like, with maybe the exception of the Pissed Off, but like are in your face, knock them down, drag you out kind of cigars. They're incredibly flavorful, complex, beautiful cigars without being heavy handed. And but yet the two identities are just so completely individual and unique. Is that something you're incredibly proud of, the fact that you're able to utilize a factory that's so known for one brand but have your own completely separate identity?
It is. It's super cool, because I've spent time. I've smoked through pretty much everything Christoph makes over the years. Spending time with those guys, and I think that's what is super cool, that our brands are so different. Our blends are completely different, and a lot of my knowledge comes from Rolando. But I would, back when we produced the Maduro, the original Maduro blend, and then the Corojo, we reblended both those blends later, and I got a lot of advice and input from Jose Blanco over the years, and he was actually the guy behind the Epic Habano blend. He really worked closely with me on that one. So, we had the initial blend prepared, of what the footprint of the blend we were going to use, and then Jose and I sat and smoked and tweaked it and changed it, and had Jose Sejas smoke stuff that we were blending, and so really I was getting a lot of great advice from a lot of people that know a hell of a lot more about cigars than I do. So I think their influences are all through. Definitely Jose Blanco's influences felt in the Habano blend, which was really a blend that he created, and then the Corojo reblend, he had a lot to do with that as well. So it's just been great to spend time with those guys and listen and get mentored and just learn. And we're just beginning. So much to learn and a lot of time to do it. So
Jose Blanco, Jose Sejas, Cigar Hall of Famer, the Mad Professor himself. I mean, these, like you said, these are some these are icons in the business, giving you tips and tricks about cigars. I mean, I mean, that's I mean, for those people who don't know, I mean, my dream in the cigar business is to do what you do, Dean. I would love to have a brand one day, and I know that, like you said, from your own lips, just what a challenge and hard work it is. I mean, and I certainly don't have the capital to do it, but I mean, when you learn from those guys, I mean, it's it has to be reassuring knowing that the cigars that you're putting out are excellent. It's not just relying on a factory or picking a blend, or I mean, you really got your hands dirty, to use the metaphor, right? I mean, you really dug in and really took ownership of this, which is something that a lot of brand owners, frankly, don't do. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But this has been part of your identity from the very beginning of Epic. As you kind of continue to build Epic, do you see yourself getting more hands-on with it, or do you see yourself more becoming the ambassador role that you've now taken on with, COVID aside, more travel and really getting the name out there?
No, it's the cigar side of the business, the blending, the tobaccos, that side of the business for me is the most exciting part. I mean, and just continuing to learn more about that, especially when it comes to to Nicaragua, all the different regions and tobaccos that we don't even have access to in the Dominican. It's just spend time. I 2 years ago I got to spend time with James and Angela from Black Label in Germany, and over 4 or 5 day period, and got to smoke through all their stuff and spend time with guys like Nolan Rojas and just listen and learn to the things they're bringing into the market. And it's overwhelming, but I love that side of the business, so I'm always going to stay connected to that, and obviously continue to grow and be the ambassador and the face of our brands. And but yeah, that I mean, if I could just be in the Dominican or Nicaragua 6 to 8 months of the year, I would. Right now, that's not where our focus is, because we're still growing our following, growing our retail base, and I think it's important to kind of travel and get that story out and focus on that to really scale our partners and customer base.
I have to say that the idea of a Dean Parsons Oveja Negra partnership or collaboration just excites the heck out of me. So if that could ever come to fruition, I'm the first. Just go ahead and sign me up for a box right now, Dean, and we'll call it a day. You don't even have to tell me the price. The money's in the bank. Trust me. I'll make it happen.
What's so cool is a lot of people in the industry sometimes will say, I only smoke my stuff, or I smoke different cigars every week from competitors, from just new stuff that's in the market, because I want to be able to speak to it when it comes to what I'm putting out in the market. And so when you get a chance to, as I said, to hang out with, whether it was Glenn Case from Christoph, and learn about why he's created a certain blend in a certain way, or the new tobacco that he's using for this wrapper, and then to spend time with a guy like James and Noel, and it's just awesome. And that's how you learn. That's how you kind of grow and sort of choose your path as you go through the market, and it gives you inspiration. And it's just, there's so many great cigars out there. That's what's I love about the industry, is that it's endless. I have spent time in in the Dominican back in 16 and 17. Spent a lot of time with Henderson Ventura, and his father William, and I'd have weekly visits. I'd go by their factory, and anytime I was in Santiago, and smoke whatever they had new, and talk and listen and learn. And those guys are awesome, and they're putting some great stuff out in the market, obviously for Matt Booth and for Caldwell, and then their own cigar, the Aventura cigars, and so it's
and
just
now
awesome.
Danny Vasquez with Baracoa is coming back. Yeah,
exactly.
So two questions before we kind of go into our next segment here, Dean, because I'm as Coop and I go back and forth on this. My partner on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition. So Coop's a Gordo guy. He's and I'm a Lancero guy, and I know I have an ally sitting across from me this evening, because you're a Lancero guy too. What is it about that Vitola that really? Because I mean, as much as you and I love Lanceros, and aside from certain pockets, I mean, what is it about that Vitola that speaks to Dean Parsons?
Well, it's weird because I wasn't always a Lancero guy until I started smoking, Lanceros, because like anyone, when you're entering the market, you're going to produce the popular sizes, because just from a business standpoint, that makes sense. And so the closest thing I came to with the Lancero was when we launched the Epic Habano. It came out with that Corona extra size, which is a 46 by 5.5, and Jose said, Dean, you need to do this size, along with the other sizes we did. We did a Rothschild, we did the Gordo, Robusto, Toro, but it was sort of that size that really sort of switched my mind or my thoughts on the smaller Vitolas. And then obviously we did some test blends in the Maduro. We came up with the Maduro Lancero, the Corojo Lancero. We have the Habano Lancero now as well. So it's just that blast of flavor that I mean, if I'm on the golf course, I'm like Coop. I'll smoke a Gordo and throw it in the grass and go on with my business. But if any other time I want a Lancero, just because of the experience you get from that cigar, the sort of true flavor experience, and the abundance of it in that Vitola it's a different cigar for me. And I'll smoke 2 or 3 Lanceros in an afternoon some days, just if you're on the water with friends or what have you. But it's just I think you really just get more out of a cigar in that Lancero format.
So are you familiar with Stogies down in Houston? They're kind of like the Texas hotbed for Lanceros. So
they're a customer.
I was gonna say, do they carry they Epic Lancero? Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, they carry all the Epic Lanceros. Yeah, Habano, Corojo, Maduro. Yeah.
Have you done an H-Town yet? Have you done an Epic H-Town?
No, we have. Jorge and I have talked about that. It hasn't happened yet, but it's something that I hope we can do in the future.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. So this is kind of, again, my last question before we go into the next segment here is was there I'm not a big fan of the term aha moment, because I think as tonight has proven, your life story has had several of those, but where can you identify or pinpoint the moment where you're like, this, like, the cigar industry is my home. This is where I belong.
It's funny when you say that, because I remember doing the first trade show in Vegas. I think it was 13 or 14, and just like being overwhelmed, and at the end of the show not being super excited, because we hadn't had great success at that initial show, and we had shelled out a bunch of cash, and we had built a booth and increased production. We did all these elaborate humidors, but it probably wasn't until I think it was 2015, 14 or 15, when we signed on with Alec Bradley and then with Germany, that I was like, okay, this is now we're going international. Now we're people are seeing things in me that I probably wasn't even seeing in myself at that time. Which that was a big step. And then I would say the next one was, when Arthur and I sat down at the end of 2018, and because, me as a brand owner, I'm like, why? You have a brand, you have your distribution company, why Epic? And he said, just sort of matter of fact, he's like, I believe in you. You're the reason. I see what you're building. I know we can have success together, and I know you need the help that I can provide. But most of all, he said, I believe in what you're creating, and so those were probably two of the key moments of sort of aha, and now we're gonna get there.
Now you're
And,
home.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So it's nice to just to have those moments, because otherwise you're kind of spinning your wheels, and a lot of the last 2 years have been awesome. Things that I never thought would happen have happened, and we're just beginning once again. We really are.
It's terrific to hear, Dean. So, now we're going to tonight's couple of these are two of my most favorite topics and favorite segments and this is the one must go segment. So as always, it's brought to you by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. United Cigars features La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So yes, smoke one today and start living united. Now, most of my audience knows this, Dina, and I know that you're a fan of the show too. So I know you've tuned in. But just for those of you who are unfamiliar, the idea here is I'm gonna pose Dean with the question and of three things, and one must go. But in the spirit of tonight, I wanted to look back at Dean's history and look back at specifically sports. And sports have kind of been a major theme in your life alongside the cigar industry. And I wanted to take a little bit different of approach with tonight's One Must Go. So I'm going to give you three sports that I know that you are, big fans of, have been a big part of your life. And I want you to remove one, saying which one has made the least impact on your life. So the one must go that has made the least impact on your life. So a little bit different take on tonight's One Must Go. But so I think the first one is obvious, right? We kind of spent a number of minutes at the top of the show talking about your history with it. Of course, that's hockey. Now you said yourself you haven't put on a pair of skates in a really long time, and it's been a while since then. I know you're still a fan and everything. It's a big part of you. But kiteboarding has been another thing of yours. First of all, I got to be honest. I wasn't even, when I heard how big of a fan of you were of kiteboarding, I had to kind of look it up. I wasn't sure. I thought I knew what it was, but I wanted to make sure. But I know you also scuba dive too. So, a lot of, talk about discovering other worlds. That's pretty great. So kiteboarding, hockey, and scuba diving, if you had to remove one that, and as in terms of the impact that it's had on your life, which one would it be?
Would be scuba diving, for sure. It's probably the one that I did a lot of diving in Turks and Caicos. I got my certification there, probably dove a few hundred times. But that's much less than the time I spent, kiteboarding and kite surfing, literally hundreds of days a year for 9 years. So as much as I do still enjoy scuba diving, I'm still certified. I get out here in Florida once in a while. But yeah, the diving would be the one I would probably take a pass on. And I still got a lot of kiting, I think, in my future. And the North Coast of the Dominican Republic is probably one of the top 10 places in the world to kiteboard, much better than Turks and Caicos, even though Turks is very beautiful. The wind conditions aren't the same. So yeah, I'd have to let the scuba diving go.
Okay, so because I heard, okay, so that's contrary to what I've heard, or what my research told me, was that kiteboarding is huge at Turks and Caicos. Like it's like the thing. But you're telling me that Florida, where you've relocated now, is a much more popular destination for kiteboarders?
No, the Dominican,
The Dominican.
the North Coast of Dominican is probably top 10 in the world for kiteboarding with the trade winds, and it's, you can literally kite hundreds a day, a year. They get winds from, averaging 20 to 35 knots almost on a daily basis. Turks and Caicos is the sport has really taken off there, but you don't get anywhere close to 100 days a year of wind. So a great place to learn. We've got the shallow waters, and the reef system is beautiful. But the wind conditions aren't comparable. About Florida, I don't kite much at all. You've got to drive, pay for parking. It's limited where you can kite. You've got to wear different equipment. You've got to wear helmets. It's restricted in certain beach areas. We've got to be offshore. So it's a challenge. A lot of people, and I'm sure there's thousands of people that kite in Florida, but it's not something I don't really have the time to do it right now anyway, but I have been out a few times, and the conditions once again aren't the same as they are in the Dominican.
So we talked about your relationship with the Sejas family. So here's something I didn't know. Enrique's a big kiteboarder too.
Yeah.
Yes.
We kited together in Dominican lots of times, and Ruben Gonzalez as well. Ruben was with Altadis for many years. Ruben's a big kiteboarder as well, so we would all spend time on the weekends in the town where I lived on the North Coast. The guys would come over kiting and barbecuing, enjoying beers, and smoking cigars for 8-9 years.
Let's dive into kiteboarding a little bit, because again, like, I had to look it up because I wasn't necessarily sure if I knew what kiteboarding was. So to put it in layman's terms and break this down for us here, Dean. So to my understanding, you're on a board, you're on a surfboard, and you're actually being propelled by the winds, as you're saying. So there's an actual kite that you're holding on, and you're surfing the ocean while being towed around by the winds and stuff. I mean, am I breaking that down into like the most basic sentiment of it? It has to be. It has to be difficult. I mean, you have to be insanely strong.
Well, a lot of the power from the kite is through you're connected by a waist harness or a seat harness that you kind of pull up on like a pair of shorts, or a waist harness for more advanced kiting. But so that kind of harnesses all the power. I know people in their 70s and 80s that are kiteboarders and that have learned, at a late age. So you really don't need, it's more a technical sport than it is a physical sport. And the work is 80% of the work is done by the kite. And then you're just, you're basically balancing yourself on the board, whether it's a twin tip board, like a snowboard style board, or a surfboard. And you can go strapless with straps. And I actually have I have a kite foil board, so that you elevate you up off the water. And on my foil board, I can go in 5 to 7 knots of wind on the water and, kite for miles. Whereas a regular kiting, you want 12 to 16 knots to be out there. And then, different size kites from 20 meter all the way down to 5-6 meter kites. So it's a lot of fun. Great sport.
I'm just still fascinated by it. Like the amount of strength and discipline that it must take to actually take this on. Because first of all, surfing, takes incredible balance just on its own. And then let's throw a kite in it, and natural, just natural elements of wind to kind of just make it more difficult. Frankly, let's just call it what it is. So were you kiting before, like on your first couple trips to Turks and Caicos, or is it something you picked up while you were there and then just fell in love with it? Or
yeah, after I moved there, a friend of mine, actually, a buddy of mine from Toronto, because there were probably only 3 or 4 people that were actually kiting in Turks and Caicos when I moved there in 2005. And so it was just a small group, maybe half a dozen people tops. And so I would drive home from work some days and I'd see these kites flying through the sky, and I'm like, wow. And I'd pull my Jeep over and sit and watch for 20 minutes. And I never ever would get out of the Jeep or walk down to talk to them. Most times they're on the water. And I kept telling my buddy about it. And for Christmas, my first year, he got me a card, and it was a gift certificate for this kite instructor. And so I went and met this guy and had a land lesson where you're basically flying like a miniature kite that really can't do a lot of damage with on the beach. You're not harnessed in or anything, and you just kind of learn how to steer and manipulate the kite. And literally after that first land lesson, before I even got in the water, I got online, ordered all my equipment, bought everything, and I was just all in. It's such a fantastic sport. Yeah.
I mean, I'm
a skier. I was a big skier in Canada as well. I am a level 2 ski coach and a level 1 instructor. So skiing was sort of something that I did a lot of water skiing and growing up in Canada and boating and stuff. So I've always been around water, skiing, wakeboarding, things like that. So it was something that I picked up pretty naturally. But you can learn, and if you get 4 or 5 days of wind and good instruction, you can be up and riding and switching directions and tacking and things. Pretty sport. You can actually, it's an easier sport to pick up than surfing, as far as to be good at. Surfing is something that's just, I've surfed, but I'm not very good, and that's a sport that is a lot. The learning curve is a lot steeper.
Ultimately I'm terrified, Dean, but I'm fascinated as well. I don't know if I'll ever get the gumption to actually attempt it, but you know what, maybe one day we can get together down in the Dominican. You can show me how it's done, because I mean, I was watching, like I said, I was watching some videos and stuff, and I just, the thing that impresses me is just the strength that you must have, like it just, and the discipline rather too. I mean, it's just
it's
I'm just
weird.
astounded.
It's just, I keep going back to this, but it's not as difficult as it looks. It really looks like it's more complex, but it's not a lot of arm strength. It's not a lot of, the kite does the work, and it's more a technical sport. And it's a lot of fun, and something you can do a lot of places in the world. So.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm utterly fascinated and excited to witness it at some point, for sure. So firsthand, not firsthand, but maybe secondhand. Like I said, but really, really cool stuff. So I mean, that was our one must go segment. So Dean says that scuba diving is the least impactful on his journey in his life. But of course, our One Must Go is always brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So smoke one today and start living united. And of course, this has become my favorites. This next segment has become one of my favorite segments on our show. And it allows us to really bring attention, bring awareness, and potentially even raise some money for some great causes. And so, I was talking to Dean weeks before, leading up to the show, about this particular segment. And we're, as anyone new to our audience knows, that we're each week we are featuring a charity or nonprofit of my guest's choice, to spotlight, to bring awareness for, and again, potentially raise some money for some great causes. So as always, I'm pledging tonight a small donation in Dean's honor to his charity of choice. So Dina, what I'd like to do is just give a small introduction to your charity of choice, and I'd like for you to share with your audience, share with my audience rather, why this organization is so important to you, and I am going to step away for just a second, but I'd like for you to kind of just discuss with our audience everything that about this organization, how they can contribute, and what goes to it. And so the charity that you chose is something that's near and dear to your heart, and also someone that you've entered in a partnership with, and that of course is the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation, which is celebrating their 20th anniversary this year. 20 years that the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation has been around. It was founded in 2001 in honor and and the legend and the spirit of Cal Ripken Sr. And they have tons of programs. Everything they do maintains the values which Cal Ripken Sr., who embodied as a devoted coach and leader and mentor, surrounded by work ethic and personal responsibility and healthy living. It's through transformational at-risk youth programs and youth development parks, multi-purpose parks, that they've really kind of given back. And there's a multitude of programs, computers to curveballs, as they say, cops to college tours. Cal Ripken Senior Foundation programs have cover all the bases for positive youth development. So 6 million kids 6 million kids are benefited through this each and every year. I mean, this is just incredible. So Dean, while I step away for just a brief moment, talk a little bit about this organization and why it's so important to you specifically.
Sure. It's been, a little over a year ago, we, through actually the Super Bowl event last year here in Miami, I had a chance to meet Jonathan Ogden, who used to play for the Ravens, and Jonathan invited me to come up in the spring for his golf event in Baltimore. And through Jonathan's team and his charity foundation, I got introduced to the Cal Ripken Foundation, and Steve Salem, who's the president of the Cal Ripken Foundation, and Randy Acosta is one of their team members as well. And we got to be part of the Cal Ripken golf event in the fall of this year. And one of the probably biggest factors of wanting to work with them, obviously Cal Ripken is certainly a legend, but one of the programs they have is the Badges for Baseball, which is a life skills training program. And they deal with, tension between police and community members, and a lot of different programs. Obviously, their youth at risk programs are huge, and they're just everything that Cal Ripken stands for is just as an athlete, as a person, and to see the work that is put in by his foundation, U.S. wide on an annual basis. I mean, this guy is, had more success in life and sports than most people will ever have, and his dedication to the Ripken Senior Foundation is unbelievable. To a guy that it's just a good example of giving back. But the relationship started just because we hit it off when I met Randy Acosta through Jonathan Ogden's foundation, who we're part of as well. But through relationships and cigars, what started as a sponsorship for a golf event morphed into now a scenario where Epic and also our Nat Seco brands are the official cigars of the Cal Ripken Foundation, and all the events they do on an annual basis. So we're in a position where we're donating cigars and resources to events on an annual basis for the charity groups, and that's adding value and obviously helping raise funds for all the programs they have going on U.S. wide. And we're working on something for the MLB All-Star Weekend that's coming up this year with Epic and with Nat Seco and the Ripken Foundation. So can't give too much details, but I'm working with their team on that, and a lot of things in the future. So it's just great to be linked to an organization like that and all the good that they're doing, rather than trying to create our own charities. And this gives us an opportunity to help build and grow on something that is existing, and to be connected with these guys are such an awesome team. Like everyone I've met from his foundation, and not just the Ripken Foundation, but all the other sponsor groups, from Cleveland Golf to FootJoy to, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And the things they're doing, Under Armour in Baltimore area as well. So it's just an awesome thing to be part of, and certainly the connection with what they're doing in the communities with police and at youth risks is sort of near and dear to me, and makes it a little bit different, and it certainly makes it personal.
it really is a, like, not just a great organization, but it's a really diverse organization. It's easy to assume that, like, the Ripken family would center around what they know, which is baseball. But I mean, the programs go deeper than that. Like, I mean, they're all over youth development. Like they said, they work with the local police forces, and they have other programs as well, to really kind of
They have
develop.
stadiums for kids, parks for kids, um, you know, flooring systems for gymnasiums to elevate experiences for these kids and in communities that can't afford to have that don't have the resources to upgrade or to even offer places for these kids to go and spend time. I mean, it's a massive, massive undertaking what they've done, what they're doing on an annual basis.
It really is. What I was really impressed with when I was learning about this organization was that, it's easy to, it's easy to. I mean, the Ripken family has always been kind of close knit. If you follow baseball at all,
Mhm.
they've always been a close knit family and everything. But it extends to off the field as well, because the entire family is entrenched in this organization. Cal and of course his brother Billy are on the board,
His
but they've got
mom.
I was gonna say his mom. She's
Hmm.
the chairwoman, right? She's the chairwoman for
Hmm.
the, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and other relatives as well. I mean, the Ripken name is all over the people that are involved with this. So I mean, they truly believe in this cause, and it's really, it kind of goes into, it's like, my wife and I, we give money to our church that we belong to, and every year we donate specifically towards youth. And so I have a real big passion for youth and youth development. And I think that, when you have an organization like this, that sole focus is on the next generation, it's a really terrific opportunity for your resources and for your time to really um, mind the, not to be over dramatic about it, but mind the shape the minds of the future. It really is. It's
Hmm.
really awesome.
Yeah, it is. And as you said, they're such they're such a broad organization and far-reaching, and all the things they do. And I'm sure that didn't happen from day one. From my understanding, things have evolved and they've grown into areas of markets and different programs over the years. But I had a chance to go to their offices a couple times now in Baltimore when I've been up there, and just an awesome team, and everybody is open, warm, welcoming, and focused on the good of what they're doing and creating. So it's a great team, great family to be part of, and especially with our industry, cigars, you want to give back as much as you can, but also give back to this opportunity. I couldn't have planned it. I couldn't have asked for it, and I certainly stand behind them and all the things that they're doing. So it's it's cool. It's just one of those things too that you never think you get the opportunity. And I've met a lot of athletes over the years. I've met a lot of celebrities, in my time in Turks and Caicos. But to meet Cal and golf with him back in September of this year, I mean, he's bigger than life, and it was just super cool. Like that guy is just so charismatic. He's so driven even today, and the Iron Man certainly is what he is, and he's just an awesome dude to spend some time with. So.
The next goal for you, Dean, should be to get him on a kiteboard. See what that experience is like.
There you go. There you go. We're gonna work to get him on a cigar show hopefully soon.
I mean, that would be great. I would love to hear
Yeah.
from his perspective. I mean, I'm a baseball guy, like I
Mhm.
mentioned, and my audience knows, but I mean, just to see what this organization that carries his father's legacy. His father's such an important part of his life. Him and Billy,
Yeah.
and the entire
Coach,
family.
mentor. Yeah.
Uh, unbelievable family, and it's really great to see them giving back in such a capacity. You know, if my audience feels so inclined, again, I'm later tonight. I'm going to be making a very small donation in, I'm donating to every one of these organizations that's brought up on my shows, and I'm going to be making a donation in Dean's honor tonight. And I went ahead and placed the link in the comments. It'll also be in the show notes later. Please consider donating. It's a terrific organization, great for tomorrow's youth, today's youth, tomorrow's generation, and what a great organization for Nat Seco and Epic Cigars to partner with. Just awesome, terrific. Well, Dean, I really appreciate you bringing that to the table tonight. Really excited to bring awareness and hopefully raise a little bit of money as well for a great organization and some great people. So as we kind of hit the backstretch a little bit of tonight's conversation, there are a couple of things that I kind of hit on. This has been an incredibly challenging year. You know, we're in 2021 now, and I think a lot of people were secretly hoping that, when the clock turned over from 2020 to 2021, that everything would kind of go back to normal, and and while it's seemingly very hopeful, we're still got a long ways ahead in a lot of ways, But the great news at basically the turn of 2021 was the release of the vaccine, that's kind of going out, and I know that you're back on the road. You're going to be back here in Texas here later in the next couple of weeks, and you're having that event over at Blue Smoke with Jay and some other great tobacconists here in the great state of Texas, but. With the news of the vaccine, I mean, what are you looking forward to most as we kind of have approached this, hopefully the beginning of the end?
I think, one of the things to look for, I mean, thankful certainly for a lot of things, but I think even tonight, having the opportunity to come on your show, and this is how, and I'm sure, guys like yourself, Coop, people that were way ahead of the game when it comes to, cigar podcasts, YouTube, really sharing the industry, sharing the passion that we all have. I think what I'm looking forward to more is more opportunities to do this and to sort of create that reach and be able to get out and tell the story more. And even though COVID sort of forced us to stay home and do this, I think that's a positive thing for the industry and a better way to connect with the mass markets in a very obviously economical way, but also you guys have built a following over the years, and so every time I have an opportunity to kind of jump in on a podcast or an Instagram live or YouTube, it's powerful, and I don't think people realize how powerful it is. And it's just, you create something that's going to be there forever as well. So looking forward to that. Obviously, looking forward to more travel. But I think, we through this time, we've got to learn to work smarter and not necessarily harder. And, but nothing replaces also a handshake, a conversation in a room over a cigar lounge. But I think we're in a better place than we were a year ago. I mean, sales are up, I think, across the board. Most companies can say that because of COVID. So people are home, they're smoking more cigars, they're enjoying more cigars. There's obviously been challenges with a lot of our brick and mortars being closed and reopened at 50% capacity. So more than anything, I'm hoping for a lot of those places to get back on track. And but people, I think, are taking steps to reinvent themselves, to set up their online portals and to be able to sell as well, not necessarily to have to be open or to be at full capacity to sort of make ends meet. So, just more of the same, to be honest. I've been on the road. I spent the whole month of October in Texas. I've been, we've been fairly blessed down here, and things have been sort of semi-normal. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm careful, when I'm traveling, and I'll be back in Texas this month. So the toughest part, I hope, is over, from March until September, I really didn't do much, and then got traveling again in October. So looking forward to events, camaraderie, travel, and just continue to grow.
Yeah, here's hoping. It was an interesting. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was interesting. I've heard from several brand owners and manufacturers as well that while this was actually a really great year for them. Whilst production was up, cigars were being sold at a much bigger rate because, like you said, more people are smoking more. But it also allowed you, like you said, it also allows brands like you to like you said, reinvent yourself and reinvent yourself without the burden of expense too. The travel is not cheap. um and
Yeah,
to get your, but that's what you got to do in order to expand
yeah.
your brand and grow. You have to travel, you have to get in front of people, like you said, and so it presented itself a challenge in that regard. You weren't able to shake the hands like you said, but
Mhm.
it allowed you kind of to allows you all as manufacturers and owners to reallocate, I guess, your resources and put
Mhm.
your efforts in a little bit different areas and different perspectives. Um, do you, I mean, do you feel like that, and because there is some concern, especially like the Dominican, where your cigars are produced, they've
Mhm.
been a lot more restrictive. Openings of factories have been a little bit more restrictive. Capacities have been
Yeah.
lower and things like that. Is there a worry? Again, you're a smaller brand, but I think it's still a very serious question for even someone like you. I mean, is there a worry that that in 2021 and even 2022 we could feel the effects of cigars, cigar production dropping because they weren't able to get back to work during this entire year?
Well, I mean, we've been fortunate, certainly with our factory in Santiago. We're still not at 100% capacity. I think we're at 60 or 70% capacity right now. But and I need to confirm that 100%. But we started increasing our production, at the end of 2018 into 19 with the new partnership and acquisition of Epic. And so we're blessed that I probably have more inventory in the U.S. than I've ever had in the career of Epic, and more backstock being produced from the beginning of 2019. So we're really in a good place, place that I've never been with the business as far as production and inventory, and so not knowing COVID was coming, we had already sort of taken those steps, and I'm pretty sure Christoph is in the same sort of scenario. So we're in a good place. We're not in any risk of running out of product or having to deal with things like that. So thankfully, um, and I think things are getting back on track more and more every day.
That's really great to hear. I have a couple more questions and then our last curveball question for you, Dean, tonight. But this is the time of night that I always thank my guests. This is Sunday night, regardless of COVID. Sunday night is usually family time. It's usually unwind time for a lot of my guests, and for you to take time away to sit down with me tonight and have a conversation about Epic Cigars, have a conversation about you. It really means a lot to me personally, and I really can't thank you enough for the opportunity to sit down and talk about your life story, and it's just been it's been a really great experience. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it.
Fair, it's absolutely my pleasure, and I can't thank you enough as well. I mean, for me, and I, you may not realize, and we've had a few conversations, but um, what you're doing, and guys like you and Coop and many other in the cigar community that are, you know, creating these podcasts and followings and groups and knowledge for smokers and customers. This is huge for me as well, and I'm excited to do more, and we'll see what we can collaborate on in the future as well. But it's really appreciated, and I appreciate you taking the time as well, because it's more than a passion, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing this. And So I appreciate you taking your time as well. And there's a lot of guys in this industry, I'm sure, that love to be on your show that probably haven't been yet. So thanks for offering me the opportunity to kind of get out here and tell my story a little bit and share some ups and downs with you. And but there's more ups and downs.
Absolutely.
In the future, for sure.
Well, we're gonna get there. You know, we're gonna get to getting more and more guests on. I'm not stopping anytime soon. So it's been an
Awesome.
you're a guest I've wanted to have on for a really long time. So this has been an incredible opportunity, and I'm really excited that I got to share your story with my audience, and because I'm thoroughly fascinated by it, thoroughly intrigued by it. I just think it's, you know, not to be over too melodramatic about it, but I think it's one of the best kept secrets in the industry. And before long, it's not going to be a secret much longer because, you know, Epic's going places, and it has been for a long time, and it's only going to get bigger and everything. So to that point, you know, the FDA, at the close of 2020, released a pretty big decision. You know, they kind of put to, not to rest, but for at least put a pause on a pretty big damper that affected probably you more than most, just because of the size and capacity that you're at. Kind of putting the deeming regulations aside for the time being, and kind of opening, I wouldn't say the door, but opening the window for more opportunity, more growth. When that decision came down, what went through your mind as far as the future of Epic and as far as things like that go?
Well, I mean, certainly a sigh of relief. We've been, I've been working with Frank Herrera, for a lot of years as our attorney with Epic, and he handles a lot of all the NatSeco stuff as well. And so we've been doing our best to put things in place as best we can, and keep ourselves updated with where we need to be and what we need to do. But to have that information come down, as of recent is a little. I mean, we're not over the hump yet, but it certainly gives us an opportunity to breathe a little bit and continue to push forward with cigar rights of America, and all the groups and big brands that are supporting this challenge, and these regulations. So we need to stay on top of it and do what we can, each and every one of us, from the smokers to brand owners to distributors, you name it. So it's a good feeling. Let's see what 2021 brings us and beyond.
Absolutely. With 2020 brought the the cancellation of the PCA trade show, and 2021 is still very much in the air. At this point, TPE was postponed until about 6 weeks before the date set for PCA. I've always asked, I've been asking my guests this, Dean, do you think TPE or PCA actually happens as scheduled this year?
I mean, I hope so. We haven't done TPE in the past, but it's something that we're looking at, that we may do. And obviously PCA is something we've been doing for a lot of years. But yeah, I think our retailers need that. I think we need it as brands, brand owners, and manufacturers, just that face-to-face connection. So I hope they do happen, but I guess more than anything, we want people to stay safe and stay healthy, because this COVID is real. It's we've lost hundreds of thousands of people. So I guess we'll let people that make those decisions make them, and we'll deal with the consequences and do the best we can to continue to keep in touch with our customers, clients, and retailers. But certainly we hope we can get back to safely attending these shows in the near future, and I hope they do. I hope we are able to have them this year for sure.
Absolutely. Dean, this is the first time in a long time in a lot of shows that I've done where I have smoked only one cigar for the entire night, and I am savoring this to the everlasting drop. This Epic 10, I want everyone in my audience to know that they need to go out and get this cigar. This is, and I'm a big fan of the Maduro, as I said, that you make. And I'm blown away by the cigar. I think it's just thoroughly enjoyable. I mean, the Cameroon, the way that it plays off the other tobaccos in this blend, the construction was impeccable. The draw was picture perfect, and the flavor is just amazing. I'm thoroughly enjoying the cigar. It's
I
incredible.
appreciate it. Thank you. That means a lot coming from you because you smoke more than the average bear. No pun intended.
Indeed. I do smoke a lot of cigars, and yeah, and you know, I kind of joke sometimes that I think that, you know, AJ's so generous. It's kind of half joking, but I think AJ's so generous. I think some of his best work is some of the blends that he shares with other people, and this is certainly among them. Like this is just terrific. You know, so it kind of goes into we're gonna have a little fun with our last question, Dean. This is our curveball segment. And this is it's not really a curveball. I kind of throw a grapefruit up there, but I think this is a fun question because, you know, tonight we've talked a lot about your, all pun intended, your epic journey. You know, you've had an incredible story. You know, and Epic Cigars is like we said is a way it's just getting started. 10 years in, it's almost this is the beginning of the beginning. You know, and
yeah.
And so I want to focus this question on Dean Parsons, the person. So Dean, is there more epic behind you or in front of you? Now, not the cigars, journey. You've had an epic journey so far. Is there more epic journey behind you or in front of you?
No, there's more in front. there's much more in front. It's funny. I just turned 50 in December of this year, or I guess of 2020. And so you kind of you hit that mark, and you kind of think, okay, you know, where's life going to take you? But I'd say I'm more excited than when I was living in Turks and Caicos or even in the Dominican, and it really we've got a lot on the horizon, and you know, we're going to continue to build a brand, build a legacy, and tell the stories, and you know, share the epic moments. I mean, that was a hashtag that I coined when we started Epic or shortly thereafter, and it really is. And I mean, epic moments isn't necessarily just about epic cigars. It's about whatever cigar you're smoking. I mean, you can use that term. So, but it's exciting because we really haven't scratched the surface yet. So there's definitely more in front of us, in front of me than behind. Although I've had a great story thus far, and I'm looking forward to creating more in the future.
I can't believe you're 50. That's unbelievable to me. I mean, I knew from your story that you had played, you know, you played hockey in the 80s. I guess I just never, you know, the late 80s. I guess I just never put two. I just never did the math. I can't believe you're 50. I just thought of you like more like I'm 37, so I just, you know, I figured you were around my age.
It.
So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm incredibly excited. I'm incredibly excited for the future of Epic Cigars. I'm incredibly excited for you. And what's in front of you. I think this is like I said, this is just the beginning, and you know, and what a beginning it is. What a beginning it is. I mean, it's something that we should all really get excited about. You know, some tremendous cigars, some tremendous people have helped you along the way. Some tremendous people are going to be helping you in the future. I mean, it's only going to get bigger and better. I'm super excited for you.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you and for all you're doing as well.
Well, thank you. That's very humbling, Dean. Well, everyone out there, I really appreciate everyone, all my audience tonight, sticking with us always late into the hours. Really appreciate everyone's likes, shares, and comments. You can check out upcoming guests on our Facebook page, ELOsoFumar. We're really excited. We're actually going to be skipping next week, but I will be bringing on Dennis Fang and Trip Waldrop will be joining me for version 6.0 of our pairings. We've done six of episodes of we'll just use the term again, epic pairings that we've done. And so we have a little bit of a spin for 6.0. We've been doing this now for five episodes over the course of the last 3 years, and we're with the sixth episode that we're going to do together. We're putting a little bit of a twist on it. So we're really excited to be sharing that in a couple weeks. But I've been super excited to sit down with Dean. This was an incredible take for our 156th take. You can always check us out on our YouTube page, which is ELOsoFumarTakes as well. But if you are a podcaster, a podcast hound like I am, you can download our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review. If you already are a subscriber, I cordially invite you to unsubscribe, but please don't forget to resubscribe. That really helps my numbers so that I can continue to bring on great guests like Dean here. And just don't forget to hit the resubscribe button. That's very important. But it's been a sensational time sitting down with Dean Parsons tonight, and we appreciate all of you. So I'm Bear Duplessis, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studios of Euless, Texas. He's Dean Parsons. This was take 156. Guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Bear.